Appreciate the presentation and the answers.
And thank you.
Yep.
Now I call on the Canadian Federation of Students to come forward. Good afternoon. You have 10 minutes for your presentation. There could be up to 5 minutes of questioning. In this round, it'll come from the government. I just ask you to state your names for our recording Hansard.
My name is Sandy Hudson.
And my name is Nora Loretto.
Go ahead.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity. Again, my name is Sandy Hudson. I'm the Ontario chairperson for the Canadian Federation of Students. And the Federation represents over 300,000 members across the province and over 600,000 members across the country. And in this presentation, I intend to make clear to all that what these 300,000 members, their parents and their families are thinking about coming into the coming election. And I also just want to make clear that the media is certainly listening to what these folks are concerned about when it comes to post-secondary education, because we just received our 7th gold star on one of our media releases, which just from the Canada Newswire, which just means that we've been having a number of media releases that have been the most accessed media releases of the day when it comes to post-secondary education. So folks are paying attention and they are concerned. Tuition fees in Ontario are the highest in the country, and students are paying an average of $6,300 this year for an undergraduate degree, and $9,000 on average this year for their graduate education, and can expect to pay as much as $30,000 for a professional degree in this province. Now, student debt in this province is also at a record high at $37,000 if we take into account both OSAP loans as well as private lines of credit and private loans that students are accessing. And in short, I think that this just demonstrates that we are facing an access crisis as students find it more and more challenging to succeed while trying to afford the incredible personal upfront cost of post-secondary education. And for those students who do manage to get their foot through the door, I can tell you from personal experience that it is impossible to measure up to your more wealthy classmates when you're trying to hold down 3 part-time jobs just to make ends meet. Now, the people of this province, and I would hope that you as well, believe that access to post-secondary education shouldn't be dependent on how wealthy or economically disadvantaged one or one's family is. But the way that the system currently operates, we are entrenching and further exacerbating the divide between the rich and the poor in our society, and Ontarians are well aware of this. A recent poll that we conducted along with the Ontario Confederation of Faculty Associations just this month stated that 73% of Ontarians believe that post-secondary education should be of a high priority, and about 70% are concerned about the affordability of post-secondary education. And in addition to the ethical question that I've highlighted, the inaccessibility issue also endangers the economic and social health of this province. We have to realize that students are graduating with mortgage-sized debts, and this is going to impact how they are going to participate in our economy, and it's going to impact their ability to access high-cost professional programs like law, like medicine, and it's also going to impact our ability to fill the 70% of newly listed jobs that all require post-secondary educations. Post-secondary education is no longer an option. It's a necessity to become a middle-income earner, and that is something that should be afforded to all people of this province. But if the government and future governments continue the example that has been set over the last few years, we will see low and middle-income earners denied the economic mobility from which generations of post-secondary graduates before them have benefited. Students this year and year after year after year have called upon the government to address the access problem. And we're recommended that the budget make clear that the government's commitment to access and equity in post-secondary education, make clear their commitment to access and equity in post-secondary education by immediately implementing a tuition fee freeze that is fully funded and province-wide at the college and university level. In addition, the government has the ability to provide better financial assistance, and I think that you will all like this one because it is cost neutral, very creative. We're recommending that the government reallocate funding for provincial tax credits that are related to post-secondary education into upfront need-based grants. We also have to discuss funding for post-secondary education. Because of the increased reliance on tuition fees and steady withdrawal of funding from the post-secondary sector by the government since the 1980s, students today are paying about half of the true cost of a post-secondary education in what should be a public service. The result is that students in this province experience the worst student-faculty ratios in the country, and colleges and universities contend with the lowest per-student funding of post-secondary education in the entire country, and indeed most of North America. The result of this has been the complete erasure of departments and programs at various institutions, and unfortunate reliance on sessional and part-time instructors. These instructors are often teaching at up to 3 institutions in the province, and have little time to devote to the academic development that students require. In order to address the funding issues, we're asking that the government commit to increasing per-student funding by at least 2%. Now, in our submission, you'll note that our vision for post-secondary education is one that is holistic and suggests a multi-ministerial approach to addressing major problems throughout the sector. We believe that this approach better reflects the widespread benefit that education has to many aspects of our economy and of our society. For example, we recommend that the Ministry of Infrastructure respond to the issue of deferred maintenance at our institutions. We have a situation where the shortfall of deferred maintenance amounts to $2 billion. This means that there is a lack of proper classroom and collaboratory space and a lack of office space for graduate students, instructors, and academic support staff. This undoubtedly affects the quality of education that our students are receiving. Now, we've made a submission at the consultations for the 10-year infrastructure plan, and we recommend that funding be injected to address the backlog in deferred maintenance, and we hope that funding will amount to at least $300 million. We're also appealing to the Ministry of Energy and hoping that a commitment will be made to provide funding for the energy retrofitting of deferred maintenance, which will amount to long-term savings for the government on energy costs. Now, there's no doubt that there's much to be done to address the issues facing students in the post-secondary sector, but the most pressing issue in the minds of our members, in the minds of their families, is the inaccessibility of post-secondary education. And we look forward to a budget that is going to make access and equity a reality for more Ontarians. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your presentation. The questions will come on this round from the government. Ms. Pendergast.
Thank you, Chair. Well, thank you, Sandy and Nora, for being here and for your presentation today. On behalf of the Canadian Federation of Students, I have just a couple technical questions. I was reading, fabulous submission. It's going to be a lot of night reading, but thank you. Who the Canadian Federation of Students are. So I opened to page 1, and so I see the representation of all of your 37 student unions. Now, is it a federation across Canada, and you're the Ontario chapter? Is that how this works?
Yes, it is.
Okay. We've heard from several, probably of your members throughout the province as we traveled last week in the north, the east, the west, all over the province, the southwest. And some of the things that we're hearing from you today, we've heard other things as well. So I'm going to ask you your thoughts on some of the stuff that we've heard from your student unions that we haven't heard from you today. But I'm also going to, I want to start with your 7th Gold Star. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Should have been the first thing out of my mouth. That's fabulous. Well done. Very impressive. Now, look, I'm an English teacher and a high school vice principal. So, you know, when I look at these numbers, I need a calculator because we're a budget committee. And so when I open to pages 2 and 3, is this the ask? Because because I got to 34 million plus 60 million plus 136 million, 10 million, 117 million, 120 million. So do we have like a sort of a total rough estimate of what the millions add up to?
I'll take the question. We haven't added up the total ask.
Did you add it up?
900 billion, yeah. This
900.
million, yeah. The sector is in dire need of funding across the board, and so we recognize that decisions are being made to an eye to certain priorities, and so we've, with an eye to the election, we're going all out with our recommendations, and we hope to see at least some of our recommendations reflected in your budget.
Well, that's a good strategy. Start with the 900 million and then
We thought so.
Just a couple more points of clarification. On page 3, where you talk about, for instance, Ministry of Energy, $100 million for 5% of existing deferred maintenance backlog. Ministry of Northern Development and Mines, I fast-forwarded to page 17 to see that cost estimate of $10 million for on-campus housing. And we heard that some of the northern universities have up to 40 campuses or communities that they serve, as well as several campuses. Where do you get these numbers? So where do you get, for instance, that for the north, the campuses there would need $10 million to expand on-campus housing? Because when we were up north, we didn't hear these numbers, so I just looking for some consistency.
Sure. A lot of these estimates come from the requests of our membership, who have identified that because of low vacancy rates in their communities, it's almost impossible to find housing. And so these would be small grants to encourage campuses to build more resident spaces to ensure that students had access to living that was in cost in line with their budgets.
Okay, so these are estimates from the Canadian Federation
From the Canadian Federation of Students,
and
yes.
not necessarily from the Ministry of whatever you've named.
Yeah, we do our. Oh, yeah, no, we do our own
You do your
research,
own.
and so if any of these numbers, if you want them broken down further, or our methodology behind them, we can explain all of that. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to go back to your summary of recommendations. I don't know where to start. The student financial aid, the tax credits. We've heard consistently, I think, that students prefer the upfront help as opposed to the tax credit at the other end. And tuition freezes or grants. I'm specifically interested in the decreasing the parent contributions. I don't see that in your submission, but I have 3 teenage sons who are ready to go to university. So I'm interested in where you stand on the parental contribution decrease.
Yeah, we are in favor of that. I mean, the fact of the matter is that the way that OSAP calculates need does rely very heavily on parental contribution, and we've heard time and time again from our membership that often amounts to an amount that is awarded to students that is not at all adequate to assist them in finding in the financial assistance that they need to access post-secondary education. And that can be for many reasons, from not having a relationship with parents anymore, to not taking into account the financial realities of the family that aren't asked for in the OSAP document.
And if I can add, we had to pare down our recommendations because obviously we've got a lot of ideas for how to improve OSAP. And so one of our documents that we submitted last year to the Post-Secondary Education Secretariat had about 29 suggestions on how to reform OSAP, and that was absolutely there. So if you're interested in seeing the rest of our suite of OSAP reforms, we'd be happy to get that to you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. Unfortunately, the time has expired.
Okay, we're just getting
Thank
warmed
you.
up.
Thanks so much to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now I call on the Hamilton Roundtable for Poverty Reduction to come forward. You will have 10 minutes for your presentation, and that could be followed up with up to 5 minutes of questioning that on this round will be coming from the official opposition.